Richie, I suppose when you're talking to people now in the couple of weeks leading up to the Six Nations, a lot of people say, oh, the big challenge now is to retain it, to repeat what you did last year. Do you see that as your challenge this year?
Look, that would obviously be really nice, but retaining a trophy at under 20s level is a little bit different than probably at senior level, because there's such a big transition of players. 3 players played for us last year in the Six Nations, so with that in mind, I think this is very much a new group, and I think these guys would like to replicate what the lads done rather than try and retain. They've worked really hard over the last number of weeks. They've come together well as a group. So we're really excited to see sort of how they progress. The other thing about under 20s rugby is it's actually very hard to know what the opposition have, because you don't see their players very often, and you definitely don't see them playing as a team. So it's a bit unknown, but our focus is very much on ourselves.
You've had plenty of warm-up games now. Do you feel like the squad has really come together?
They've definitely come together. I think they came together very early. They've worked hard together. As coaches, we've set them tasks where they've been really good and mixed really well with the sort of 4 provinces sort of coming together. It's a strong group. And you know, they've had a bit of fun as well over the thing. But I think until you get named in the 32-man squad, I think there's always a sort of a little bit. They're all always a little bit apprehensive. So I think now the guys will finally just relax, and then it's about driving the team forward.
Is there a little bit of pressure on these lads considering the success that you had last year?
I think there's always, like any competition that they'll go into, there's always going to be pressure on them. You know, I do remember having a conversation with one of the lads the first time I met him, and he turned around to me and said, last year was great. He said Six Nations was great, and I went, yeah, it was brilliant. He says, I want a bit of that. So you know, I think success breeds more success. The guys are very hungry, but you know, success for us will be seeing a lot of these players come through the pathway and get up into the senior, their provincial senior teams and into Ireland. So 20s is looked at in 2 ways. One is obviously the success of the team, and then the second part of it then is the success of how many players you develop and try and get through into those senior setups.
Kind of along those lines then, how beneficial is it for you to have maybe the likes of Gus and even a couple of 3 from last year, is it?
3 from last year.
How beneficial for you is it to have them, the lads who've been there and done that and have also had a bit of success?
Yeah, so we had 3 lads from last year's Six Nations, and we had 4 more who came away on the summer tour with us. Probably the guys in the summer tour probably didn't see quite the level that the Six Nations is actually played at, but it was an eye-opener for them. Those guys coming back are a real asset to us, because it gives them they've been there, they've experienced it, and a lot of those guys have really kicked on and driven forward this year really well. So the thing will be is we'll prepare the team so that when they do come to play Wales, they'll be ready. You know what I mean? They'll be ready. They'll understand what it's going to take. We're pretty hard on them in relation to the standards that we set and how we implement our game plan. So the guys they've been excellent so far.
James was saying to us that he feels the competition in the squad for places is a little bit more intense this year. Would you go along with that?
I definitely would. I think last year's team were an incredible team. One of my favourite rugby teams that I've ever been involved with. You've set them a task, they just drove forward and they tried to achieve everything that they did. But out of 32 players, this probably group as a collective group is probably stronger. You know, in certain positions, there's guys who won't get to play in the Six Nations who are extremely good players and probably would have played in other years. And then in other positions it's slightly different. So every year throws up different sort of challenges for a squad. But as a squad, they look very strong. And I think it's tough because a few players have missed out, sort of just on the edge of that 32, who could easily play. And the other side of it is that there's a number of boys who've missed out through injury, and I think it's very difficult for them.
With such a strong 32, do they have the same hunger as the group last year?
Well, until we get into it and get our teeth into it, we'll see. But I think, what they've shown so far is that they're very dedicated, very committed, and they're learning. And I think when you look at the progress that we made through our 3 games, obviously we were beaten by Italy in our first game. With a huge scoreline of 50-47. There wasn't much defence that day, so we've done a bit of work on that since. But that progression from there to the Munster game to the Leinster game has sort of given us an opportunity to show the guys the areas that they need to improve in order to be successful at this level. And success will look in many ways, differently in many ways for us. Ultimately the under-20s is to try and get players through the pathway up into the professional provinces and to play for Ireland. So it's a stepping stone along that journey. Lastly
then, you've named Gus as captain this year. What kind of qualities do you look for in your captain, and I suppose how has he ticked those boxes for you?
Well, there's a few things. When we go back through camp footage and we're looking for good examples of things, he kept popping up. You know what I mean? So if I was looking for a good clean out, there's Gus. If I looked at a good ball carry, he was there again. So he kind of leads by example on the pitch. He's also got good leadership experience in the past, because he captained his school team to a senior cup last year. So the fit just seemed right. There'll be a number of guys put in around him, and sort of a leadership group of 6 guys. Conor Tiernick will step in as vice captain as well. He's a very clever young man, and has obviously played at this level last year, so I'm sure he'll be a massive support to Gus. So yeah, he just seemed to be the right guy for the job.
That's great stuff. Thanks a million, Richie.
Cheers.